This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening. This is VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. It is Thursday, the 18th of October, 2018, though you also may be listening on Friday the 19th, Saturday the 20th, or Sunday the 21st of October, 2018. Well, to get right into things, VORW Radio International is a weekly light entertainment program, which is a mixture of my talk and commentary, as well as listener-requested music. I'm outside. I'm recording it in the evening right now. I'm just enjoying the cool air, and I wanted to just get right into things for the most part with a lecture that I recorded a little earlier, so I hope you can bear with me. On one brief note, you can hear this broadcast on the international shortwave on the frequencies of 9955 kHz, 9395, 7780, 7730, 7570, 5950, 5850, 5130, or 4840 kHz. So if shortwave reception is a little iffy, there are many frequencies that I broadcast on. You can request a full schedule via email. I'll be happy to provide one to you at vorwinfo@gmail.com. So if reception is poor for you on one frequency, you can find another one to find the show on. And likewise, that email is the only way that I know that anyone out there is listening, so correspondence, long or short, is always most appreciated. Again, to vorwinfo@gmail.com. With that, I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. You know, when it comes down to things, sometimes I wonder if it's even worth mentioning or not. But this is the second lecture that I've gave. The first one, I recorded it, because sometimes, as you can tell, this is in a completely different setting. It's outside, it's at night. You could hear the nighttime insects, perhaps, in the background and whatnot. And it's not that the first lecture was terrible. Well, maybe it was. I was personally satisfied with it. But I don't know. I did not have a good gut feeling about it. You know, I just didn't want to have the show focused on that one particular topic this week. So I kind of mothballed it, so to speak. Because I thought it brought up some decent points. But I said, alright, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to save the audio file, and maybe use it for a rainy day. If I'm feeling sick or whatever, I could throw it in then, right, and put something together with it. So here I am, more down to the wire, because originally, about a day ago, I thought, well, okay, this is going to be what I'm going to do for the show, blah blah blah, and here I am a day later, with the deadline really looming. But you know what, I said, I'm just going to record something different. So bear with me here. First and foremost, a lot of people enjoyed the lecture last week about death and loss and how to handle that. And I really I appreciate your feedback. It means a lot. And it's an absolute honor, to be quite honest, to be able to do this show, to be able to put it out to all of you. And just to reach such a great audience. When it comes down to things, in my own opinion, it's just my opinion, I think everyone's entitled to one, of all the work I do, creating content, be that on YouTube, on social media, audio, visual, anything in between, this radio show, in my opinion, is the most important, impactful, and meaningful thing that I do. And that's just my own viewpoint on it. I know it doesn't get the views or, whatever, that the food reviews get. And that's not saying that I don't like doing the food videos. It's just that this show has more meaning to me, I suppose, than any of the YouTube work does. So with that, thank you for tuning in. And, if you know of anyone that you think would be interested in hearing this show, or you think it might do something for someone, spread the word, get the word out about this show. because it's something that I want to have some continuity for, and of course the best way to keep something going is to have a broad audience to reach. So, spread the word of this broadcast if you're interested, because, again, it's just something that, if I really could, I would put all my effort into doing this show, but unfortunately I just don't have the capital, i.e. money, to do that. As a matter of fact, this broadcast only goes out thanks to listener funds, but, it's just, that's my opinion on this show. Well, anyway, this week, to be quite honest, how have I been doing this week? Well, up and down, quite frankly. Personally, as for how everything's doing, well, it was a pretty good week. Nothing bad happened this week. The YouTube releases were pretty good. There was one video that I did where, I just wanted to do my own thing, and it kind of fell flat on its face. But you know what? That's okay. The people that saw it, though it may not have been a lot, really enjoyed the video, and that's what's important. Otherwise, the broadcast last week, it was well received, though propagation, the radio signals themselves on Thursday were terrible. It's pitiful. And it's always a shame, sometimes just the way the atmosphere can be, the radio signals just don't get out as good as they should. That was a disappointment, but the broadcasts that went out Saturday and Sunday were very well received by a lot of listeners, kind of made up for it. So, in terms of how things were last week, and this week, really, that was a fine week, everything's going good. But it's a sad time also. I spent the whole show last week talking about this, so I'm not going to spend any more time than is absolutely necessary, but, mentally, emotionally, yeah, it's been up and down. I'm not going to lie. As a matter of fact, the day that this show is going out, it marks exactly, the 1 year anniversary of when I lost that very close relative. Of course it's tough. Time heals all wounds, perhaps. But again, when it's so fresh in your mind, time doesn't do anything to help you out. So it's had its rough moments. It's had its rough patches. And that's just the way it is. I think we all have our rough days, right? Bad days. When it comes down to good and bad, they are such broad terms, right? Everyone has different perceptions of what's good, what's bad, right? Even the broadest things, in terms of what you think should be considered good and what isn't, so many times it's relative, and it's, open to interpretation. I think we all have our bad days. I think that's one thing that pretty much all of us can share in common. Yeah, we all have our good days, too. I'll save another talk for that, but we all have our bad days as well. We all feel down, sad, depressed, at one point or another. Look, I'm not gonna lie. Of course I do. I have times where I feel depressed. I think one thing that some people who don't have a lot of understanding, and I don't say that with any means of trying to attack any certain types of people, it's merely a fact, but I think that some people who don't really have as much understanding think that when you talk about depression, and when you say that you might be sad, or down, or even feeling depressed, does not mean, necessarily, that you have a terrible life, and that you hate everything about your life, and that everything is absolutely miserable. You can read case after case where sometimes we could be depressed about one thing. One event that has us down, something going on at work, at school, something in the real world, a very personal matter that can be at the forefront of our mind, eating away at us. And it can just be one thing, or two things, but that doesn't mean that the rest of your life is absolutely meaningless and useless and terrible either. You can have a lot of wonderful things going on, and you can still feel sad at times. I think sometimes I wish more people understood that. I wish more people We're able to realize just because someone is having a rough day doesn't mean that everything in their life is absolutely terrible. I disagree with that. Like I said, this week overall for me was a pretty good one, but at the same time, for me, I've had my low points. Just because of, personal. Just because of the loss and all that. But on to the next point that I really wanted to focus this lecture on. When we have bad days, I know it's difficult. I know it because I say it from experience. I'm a lot happier right now in 2018 than I was 4 or 5 years ago. As a matter of fact, I remember there were times where, 5 years ago, for instance, when a lot of individuals first started discovering my YouTube channel. This was back in 2013. And they started discovering my YouTube channel, and they were saying some very, very, very nasty, terrible things, about me. And at the time, I hadn't really ever had such remarks directed to me. And I was very, very depressed for weeks and weeks and weeks. Every single day, it was terrible, quite frankly. And then, of course, I just got used to it, and then I just started ignoring it. But I remember 5 years ago, at that time, I was just really down every day. I would read these remarks, people telling me to go kill myself and this and that. And I took it seriously. I thought, maybe I really am that worthless. And maybe I really am as much of a worthless piece of, that these people are saying that I am. Because sometimes when you just hear that every single day, like a broken record, you almost just start believing it. And it just really gets you into a terrible funk. But I remember years ago, that was a really rough patch. Of course, now, you have ups and downs, but I'm a lot happier now than I was a couple years ago. And for that I am extremely, extremely thankful. Mostly in part because of my loved ones. That's really what I live for. That's my support system. That's what keeps me here. And, gets me through the good times and the bad, so to speak. But we all have our bad days. Maybe it is because of what someone said to you, or someone said about you. Maybe it could be conflicts with a friend, coworker, family member, loved one. Could be someone you don't even know. Could be disappointing performance academically, in the workplace. Maybe you got fired. Maybe you failed an exam. Maybe you spent a lot of time and effort working on some sort of project or endeavor, and it just didn't get the response that you thought it would get. Maybe you went ahead, this is a silly but specific example, but who knows, right? Maybe you went ahead, you bought some radio airtime, put your own show together, and it happened to air last week when the radio propagation was terrible, the signal didn't really get out there, and you kind of felt that all the work you put into it was out there wasted for nothing. We all have our bad days, and a lot of the time those bad days are situations that, yes, could be interpreted very broadly, and a lot of us can identify with. Other times, they can be situations so unique to us, you might be the only person that even can truly understand it and can truly relate to it, and that's okay too. What do I do when I have a bad day? And by bad day, I don't mean, I woke up and I stubbed my toe. It's a bad day, right? It's when, you feel down, right? What do I do? How do I get through it? This is just what works for me. I'm not going to say it works for you. I think whenever I discuss these subjects, I never try, because sometimes I hear these terrible, disgusting snake oil salesmen on the radio who act like they have some sort of cure-all that'll work for, every single living being that deals with the same thing. I think that's just wrong. When I get a bad day, what always works for me is having a support system in place. You might say, all right, yeah. I'm sure we've all heard that one before, right? You could just Google it and there you go, right? Support system, a support network. But when it comes down to having that support system, think of it this way. Because I think a lot of us, maybe we know what our support system is. I gave a lecture a couple months ago on support systems. Maybe it was actually close to a year ago now, I don't even know. Where I said, a support system can pretty much be anything, in my opinion. And some of us really know what a support system is. Some of us don't. Here's the best way to try and find out what your support system is, so to speak. You're going through a difficult time. What motivates you to keep going day to day? What gives you that reason to wake up tomorrow, to carry onwards through the even darkest of times, through the saddest, most frustrating periods we go through? What gives you that motivation? What gives you that drive in life? It's something. And it's something that is very likely unique to each and every one of us. Yeah, for some of us, let's just get it right out of the bat. Yeah, for some of us, it's going to be money. And then, from there, well, okay, money. What do we do with that money? There you go. Now that applies uniquely to each and every individual. For some people, it may be family. It may be their parents. It may be siblings. It may be a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe a child. Maybe it's a pet. Maybe it doesn't even need to be anything living, in my opinion. It could be food, drink, music, literature, any type of media, really. Could be the nature and beauty of this world. But it's something out there. Something that gives us that drive. Sometimes, even if we are in the most darkest of situations, and we feel like we've hit rock bottom. I talked about this again a couple weeks ago. But sometimes, having any little glimmer of optimism can be what keeps us going one day to the next. We might have hit rock bottom. Well, guess what? Future is uncertain. If we're at the lowest point we can be, it's only upwards from there. And if we think we're at a low point, realize this. Chances are, it can always be worse. When it comes down to that type of thought, it comes down to very, very specific situations that, again, are unique to each and every one of us. But if you're feeling bad, as I sometimes do, I think about my support system. And you know what? I cling to it. Because that's what keeps me going in life. You know what? If it's writing, gives you that drive, or if it's music, you're feeling bad, there's no harm even using it as a means to kind of get those negative emotions, negative thoughts out. Because sometimes if we just allow that negativity to stay inside of us, it boils over and it just eats away at us. I know. It's not good to keep it inside of you. Sometimes just getting it down and out of your system can do so much wonderful good. It's the truth. But identify your support system. Try and, find a way to vent out that negativity. And from there, look at your situation, assess your situation, look at it from different perspectives. Look, sometimes we make a mistake. Sometimes things we do are failures. Sometimes, however, something that we thought was a failure we can look at it from a different angle, different perspective. All of a sudden, wait a minute, what I thought was a colossal screw-up really wasn't that bad. Or you know what? Even if it was a colossal mistake, there can still be ways to fix it and ways to move on from it in one piece. Take a look at the situation and just know, might not have been the best outcome, or I might not be feeling the best right now about whatever's going on, but you know what? Still have the future ahead of me. That future is broad, and it's open. It can be a clean, open slate that I can do with as I please. Think about what keeps you going in life. Look at the future, and just go from there. And on one final note, just remember this. Those bad days that we have, I know that there are times when our mind can just eat away at us, I know. And it can just be one day after the next. Doesn't seem like it can get any better. If there's one thing that I want to tell you through experience, as tough as it can get better. Sometimes, when all else fails, and everything else just seems hopeless, just remember that some support systems, even if we can be nervous about it at first, do exist in the medical field. Psychiatrists, therapists, counselors, they can help you. They really can. Sometimes it doesn't come down to that. Sometimes simply having those conversations with your loved ones can help you out. But just remember, on a final note, sometimes the medical field is not something to completely and totally fear. I know that this talk was a bit disorganized, but I hope you got something out of it. A monologue, I suppose, on bad days. And just some of the tips that, I think of and utilize when I myself go through bad days. When it comes down to dealing with situations and failures and all of that. Just feeling sad or depressed or any of that. Something to consider. As I said, I know this might not work for everyone. It might not be a cure-all. But I hope someone somewhere got something out of it. This is VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. It would mean a lot if you could let me know that you're tuned into this broadcast right now. There is no ratings system. There's no view system. There's no view count system for this broadcast. I really don't know who's listening, how many people are listening, if anyone is listening. I could just be out here right now talking to myself, and that's it. I really don't know. The only way I know that anyone out there is tuned into this broadcast is if you let me know that you're listening. And you don't need to write me an essay. You don't need to write me a paragraph. Last week I got a few emails from people who just said, I'm listening from Germany, right? Tuned in from New York City on SoundCloud. Well, that's awesome. I know someone in New York City on SoundCloud was listening. Never would have known that otherwise. Listening in from England on 7780 kilohertz. Just short, tiny little emails like that are such a tremendous help to this broadcast. If you're listening in right now, your correspondence is welcome. VORWINFO@gmail.com. VORWINFO@gmail.com. Once again, VORWINFO@gmail.com. And you know what? You wrote in last week, you could write in again this week and the week after that. I'm not going to go ahead and take my computer and slam it against the wall and destroy it in a fit of rage if someone writes in 2 weeks in a row. That's fine. There's people that have wrote in every single week for a year and a half. There's nothing wrong with that. So feel free to. No harm, no foul. With that, let's get on to some music. This next song coming up is one that I selected. It's from my repertoire, and I've kind of just been listening to it on repeat for days at this point. No shame in that. It's a great song by U2 from the year 2000. It's called Walk On. Hope you enjoy it. This is VORW.